Okay. We're going to dig a little deeper and go a little wider. Okay, both. I want to just quickly go back at what we did last week. If you look at chapter 3, Roman numeral 5, Tzedek, Tzedek, Terdov. I cleaned this up a little bit. I put them in with Nikudot, and we'll go back and do it for the rest of it. I think it's a better way to do it. L'ma'an techiyeh. Tzedek, tzedek, tirdof, l'ma'an techiyeh. So let's go back. Our headline is awareness, right? Overall awareness of a general path in life. That's the ongoing perspective that the Ramchal speaks to. Overall awareness for a general path. Drop down is awareness vis-a-vis specific character traits, how I'm faring in this area or that. Drop down further is the exact issue or event or decision at hand. So what the Ramchal is speaking to is a very peaked, a very heightened sense of awareness to all of those, with the idea that the absence of that is Yetzer Hara. So the absence of awareness is what we would call the ultimate evil, because the absence of awareness enables carelessness, enables lack of growth, enables pain that overwhelmingly impacts us. So absence of something positive, the void, that void, according to the Ramchal, is Yetzer Hara. Okay, the fact that the void is a thing is the Yetzer Hara, right? So okay, good. So, which means that overall, we want to develop in ourselves and in those around us, we want to try and develop this very great sense of awareness. Now, the challenge is that this awareness typically brings with it emotion, which we made very clear last time, has nothing to do with this, nothing, and should have nothing to do with it. This should be purely objective. And by the way, this is a life work, because most people will shy away from this type of awareness because it's too painful, it's too emotional, it brings on too many opportunities for self-judgment. What we're holding is that if it's subjective, then there's no problems here. It's easy, right? It's easy. It's easy to go at. It's easy to stay with. Okay? Yeah.
I think it's a lofty goal. I don't think
it's not so lofty.
I'm saying I don't think that it's so attainable.
You don't think it's attainable?
So attainable.
Okay.
I think that it's very difficult to be objective
when it comes to
to pull emotion out of. I think what we're asking people here is to strip down and be vulnerable.
We're asking, yeah, that's right, ourselves and others to strip down and be vulnerable, correct?
I mean, ourselves, because it's self-awareness.
Yes, that's right.
That comes with emotion.
So let's look at it. Let's look at it, right? Let's say a person is making a decision on what what he or she wants to eat that night. It's just right. So is there emotion in that decision? Certainly there is, right? But there's would you say it's maybe an 80-20? Maybe could we just for at this point, could we say it's 80% non-emotional and 20% emotional? Yes. What I want to make for dinner?
Yes.
We could say that, right?
100%.
That's reasonable. Good. So if we hold things like that as the paradigm, and then we say, okay, let the decision about X be like that decision.
You can try, but the whole point of the self-awareness and the growth is digging deeper than dinner. It's digging
exactly
things that are more on the line. Like, so if I made the wrong dinner and no one liked it, or I felt like eating something else, okay,
it's not that big of a deal.
It's not the end of the world.
Right.
But when the stakes are higher, then there's more emotion. That's just how it goes. Same with when someone, let's say, that we care about so much or we love so much, hurts us, it hurts way more than if
That's
someone
different.
else said the same thing to us.
Beautiful, beautiful.
So-
Hold that. That's different. You're absolutely right. That's different. I want you to stay where we are now. You're
Okay,
right.
but I'm saying even one with themselves.
If someone we love hurts us, I'm overwhelmingly in a legitimate category of emotion and the pain that's related to that. Great. Perfect. But if I can move this awareness to the same type of, and for everybody, it's different. For one person, there may be a lot of emotion in what they want to eat for dinner. For another person, whatever the paradigm is, that for me, you, him, her, reflects that which is least emotional in our considerations, let that be the flag that I model after.
So I'm gonna, I
No,
read it
keep
differently.
that's why we're
So
here.
my of this is there may be very difficult moments and a lot of emotion, and there'll be more emotion the more you peel away and the more you have self-awareness. But don't let that deter you from moving forward in the hope of growing and learning and getting closer to Hashem and closer to your truth. Don't stop peeling because of all of the emotions that are there. Because I don't agree.
Okay, so let's do this.
No.
Let's do it this way. Let's try this way. Hi, Vivian. How are you? Let's try it this way. What if we said as follows? What if we said that we're going to turn the whole thing on its head? We're going to take the Ramchal's perspective based on the halakha we brought from Harambam, right? We're coupling these together, and we're going to start as follows. Let's say we're going to start in a different way. We're going to start with the following. I'm building my day. Let's say I'm building my day, right? And as I'm building my day, it's not b'diavad, it's not by default. I'm building my day with happiness points throughout the day. That's how I'm building my day. I am Harat Olam, right? Again, I'm going to go back. I'm going to reclaim what Harambam wrote, which we talked about, and I'm going to use that as a platform for this. And let's see. So I'm going to start with reclaiming my day. Okay, I'm going to start. All right. Tomorrow is the first day of my life. I get up at X o'clock, 6 o'clock in the morning, let's say, and I'm going to build my day from there. And the way I'm going to build my day is going to be full of things that bring me fulfillment and pleasure. Period. How's that sound?
Sounds so nice.
How does it sound? No, how does it sound? One second, how does it sound? I'm going to start right tomorrow morning, this afternoon. I'm going to start with that courage, that resilience to say everything that goes on. I'm not going to now stuff is going to creep in, but I'm going to build my day based on emotional, intellectual, spiritual pleasure points. How's that sound?
I think it's a good outline.
Okay, beautiful. Now, if my perspective starts with that, right? Emotional, intellectual, spiritual pleasure points are the axioms based on which I build my day, right? So what does that mean in practical terms? That means that the junk doesn't creep in the way it used to, the way it did today. Tomorrow, it can't creep in the same way because my platform, my environment, my emotional, spiritual, intellectual environment is completely different.
Agreed.
Beautiful. So we start with that. Right? Because from a Torah's perspective, I can't just mosey along. I can't just by default be bumped into the next day of my life. That's not how we live, right? We really seized the day. It really came from us. Okay, good. Now assume that the person has outlined his or her day, hour by hour, hour by hour. Is it going to be perfect? It ain't going to be perfect. But I outlined my day to bring me pleasure. Don't be afraid of that. I outlined it to bring me pleasure, period. I don't have to apologize. I don't have to look over my shoulder. Good? That's what we said. Perek Aleph, right? right? Which a few of you disagreed, right? Perek Aleph.
I completely agree with this.
Good. All right. So 1 out of 2 ain't bad. So,
I think
okay,
there's
now
enough other stuff going on.
Beauty.
that you need
Okay,
to
we got it.
really
Now-
hone in and focus on.
I have my Tuesday, right? I have my Tuesday. Now, with that platform as my day, and again, I'm going to replicate it Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, so no. Is it going to be perfect? God willing, it's not going to be perfect. Then there'd be really no point to it all. But if it's going to be overwhelmingly maintained, now I start with an emotional bank account that's very different than most people. Most people don't have the emotional deposits to attempt this because they're not starting with enough of a cushion and a platform. They're not doing, by the way, nobody taught us how to do this. Nobody taught us how to do it, right? Teach me when I'm 6 years old, when I'm 8 years old, let's lay out your day. Well, what do you mean? Aren't I in school? Aren't I a victim? Don't I have to be dragged along by what other people tell me? That's what we're inundated with. We're enculturated with the fact that when I'm a little kid until my last day, there's forces that are dragging me through stuff. So every child should be taught the opposite. And guess what? If a few kids rebel against the system, God bless them. Maybe they'll make it better. Why not? We were never taught that it's my day. Nobody ever taught us that.
We were taught the opposite.
We were taught the opposite. We were taught it's everything else's day, and I'm going to grab a little piece here or there. Good? Yeah?
I'm saying we were taught to do for everybody.
Good. All shtuyot. From a Torah perspective, it's all shtuyot. Okay? Now, if I start with that, am I going to get it great the first day? Maybe the first day I'm going to get 20% there. Maybe 30, maybe 40. And by the way, remember, I have my Chabura. I have my Yedid Nefesh as my partner here. You can't do this alone. Nobody can do it alone. Everybody needs a partner. Everybody needs a pal. Everybody needs a non-judgmental, excuse the term, nut that wants to do the same thing. Cool? Now, if I'm doing it and my Yedid Nefesh is doing it, I'm not alone. You can't be alone in this.
Okay.
You can't be alone. You can never be alone. Okay? Can never be alone in this thing. You have to have somebody who's working it with you. Now comes part 2. Part 2 is stuff comes up, right? Stuff comes up. Now I'm coming from a very different place. My deposits of rigor and strength and happiness are dramatically different.
I agree.
Cool. Good?
Yeah,
Good.
100%.
Now, against that backdrop, I don't have to be an emotional yo-yo. By the way, I am speaking from experience because I'm with you. Hi, Shelly, how are you? I'm with you 100%. And we spend our lives fighting our ways out of this thing. But we got to do it. And we will not, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu will not condone us becoming victims. He will not. And at the end of 120 years, he's going to say, what did you do? What did you do? How didn't you have a better time? Rambam writes, I think it's Chot Melachim, Rambam writes, that a person will be called to task by Borei Olam for the beautiful places in the world he or she could have gotten to because financially prior to that, but didn't go see. What? Aren't we supposed to be drudging? Aren't we supposed to be crying? What are you talking about? Yeah, HaKadosh Baruch Hu does not, let me ask you, as parents, right? Do we want our kids to ever have a painful moment?
No.
Never. Do we know that they're going to? Yeah, okay. Does HaKadosh Baruch Hu want us to ever have a painful moment? Never. He wants us to build through power and strength and happiness. So if I start with that and I chock full my day, I want to tell you something. So I was in business for a long time, a lot of years. I was pretty good. I wasn't great at business. I was okay. I was a little bit miscast. I really, truly was. I wanted to get out 20 years ago. I I was talked out of it. I talked myself out of it, whatever it might have been. I made a decision in my life. By the way, very complicated decision. It brought with it a gazillion complications, not two, and not a million, a gazillion, whatever that means. Okay. And we're still figuring them out. Yeah. I have never been happier in my life, ever.
Okay.
Now, my question is, Brianna, what took me so long? Okay. Everybody asked a question and nobody should ask the question. Okay. But the point being that I define my life. I do. And when I stand up and I make that decision, God stands up and he cheers. That's the way it's supposed to be. Now, if I have that resilience, if I have those emotional, spiritual, and intellectual deposits, I can objectively assess what I'm doing. I can ignore the emotion because I'm having a great time. No? What do you say?
So I want to say something. I agree with everything you said.
What? This is incredible.
I know, I really do.
Note this on the recording.
No, I'll say that over the last several years, I've been working on things like this, and Michal was a very big help. It's really started me off like this, and it does change your life, and you do approach things in a different way. And I think having someone to bounce things off of make a very big difference. It helps change your mind. So when something comes up, you kind of hear them in your mind, and you're able to do it with yourself. But something else to your point that I find that helps me is like, because now since we've been doing this, I've been trying to pay more attention to like myself. If I get upset, like I don't get so upset so much anymore, but no, don't do it. But sometimes I find that I'll do maybe what's more in your line of work to myself of why did I get upset? Like really go down to where did it come from like, 30 years ago. And then it changes off and then it's gone. And then you move on. I'll get past the emotion, I think is what I'm trying to say. I don't know if you have to necessarily avoid it. Like that's very hard, but maybe this is an in-between. I didn't get there yet.
Right.
But I think you can go through it, get rid of it, and then make a decision, whatever the thing
I
is.
agree 100%. I just don't think that there can't be emotion there when you're forced to look at yourself.
No, but
I
there
think
is,
starting off
but
with
you have to move past it, I'm saying.
of course, I think starting off and planning your day and doing the things that you spoke about is extremely important. I think that it makes us better to ourselves. I think it makes us better to the people in our lives and better versions of ourselves to the people in our lives, whoever they may be. And I think that, like you said, we're trained sometimes to lose sight of our own stuff because we're so busy taking care of other people and doing other things. And it's when you start to be at that fault line that you have to reassess. I don't think that
I want you to go differently. The people in this room and on this chat are some of the people I have the most respect for on the planet. And I'm not exaggerating. It's some of the smartest people I know, both here and there. But I want you to move to a different place, God willing. Let me ask you something. Did you have a great time yesterday?
Yes.
You had a great time. Did you? Okay. I don't want to put more on the thing. I don't want to make it worse. But why? Why not?
no,
Why not? One second. Why not? Why not? Because life and this, okay, good. But we say, Sha'asali kol sarki, right? One of the berachot we say every morning, right? HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives me, not gave me. Gave and gives me the tools every day to have a great time. Someone's saying, but there's umpteen things going on. It's true, but you can still have a great time today. Now, if I'm having a great time, I can be more self-assessing, more, excuse the term, but critical of self, because it's on a cushion, on a beautiful bed of strength, of joy. Not there yet?
No, I agree with all of that. I just, when you said that there's no emotion, that part I can't.
That's what I want you. I don't want you to set that up as your ideal. And by the way, I'm not there yet. Very few people ever get there 100%. But if we can move this thing from 80, 90% emotion, or maybe 110 to 10 or 20 or 30%, it's a different life. It's a different life. And that's what we want. And that's what Ramchal is talking about. You know, that's why some people won't learn this book. They won't learn the book. And I understand it because they don't have his basic platform. His basic platform is not the way we live, not with the guilt and the self-judgment. He's saying, what are you all getting so excited about? What? Because he doesn't come from that place. He doesn't come from America 2023. Doesn't come from that place. He comes from a much more fundamentally happy place. Huh? Should we switch the topic?
Yes.
No, I'm fine with it.
Should we like to something else?
Yeah.
So, Chacham Vivian, the term Techyeh, I don't know if you're there or you're.
I'm here. I'm on Kings Highway on East 7th getting to you.
Listen,
There's no parking.
Chacham, when we see the term Techyeh, how do we assess the term Techyeh? What's your perspective on it? No, I want to make my apologies. When we see the term Hayim, Techyeh being a version of Hayim, how do we understand that term?
So I definitely believe it's this world. I know there's people that may think, Chayecha be'olam haba. I'm not there yet. I'm a very practical, handle what you can and control the space you're in. So I would say using the breath that God has imbued us with.
Great. Beautiful.
So living, I would say living with a sense of godliness, living with a little bit like what you spoke about, the potential that anything and everything is possible because the Chayim, the Nishmat Chayim that God gave us, that he breathed into us, is part of the reality and is part of our planning process that you were talking about.
What Harambam speaks to in terms of Hayim, Tzedek, the Ma'an Techyeh. Maimonides says that the Hayim that we're referencing, the life that we're referencing, is here, there. It's a here, there. So when we say Ubachata b'Chayim, for example, choose life, or Zochrenu l'Chayim, we say it in the Amidah during Aseret Yemei Teshuvah, right? We're talking about having it good here and having it good there. Okay, having it good here, Hayim, because otherwise our rabbis say, what do I need the term Hayim for? It is. Got it. What do you mean?
You mean in the plural? You mean Chayim in the plural?
Yeah, and the you want to call it plural or you want to call it okay, maybe we'll call it plural. Okay, maybe that's the nice way to look at it. That we always read it as plural. Because Zochrenu l'Chayim. The rabbis have a problem with this. They said, what do you mean? I'm alive. Of course I chose life. If I didn't choose life, I wouldn't be alive. What are you talking about? The choice of something is to choose the life that will enable a certain level in this life and the life to come. Therefore, in the context of Tzedek Tirdof, what we said was we choose a righteous goal and end. Hi, Carol. We choose a righteous
Hi,
path.
Ricky.
How are you?
Good, thank you.
And then we get there righteously. Tzedek Tirdof, the Ma'an Techyeh. So it goes back to what the Ramchal said, that I'm going to have an awareness of where I'm going based on Harambam, right? Harambam, drop down Ramchal, and now we're going to grab this piece that we're going to tie to it. Yeah. So I have an awareness of where I'm going, and I want to get there in a tzedek way. What does tzedek mean? How did we define the term tzedek?
Last week.
Huh?
I
Oh,
wasn't here,
now
but
it's all going to go back to last week. Everything is going to be this week. I'm
I'll
kidding.
tell you what it is.
We-
'Cause I
We
looked
didn't
at
do it. No, we didn't.
No,
do it.
but didn't I tell you I wrote a sheet?
Yeah.
Isn't tzedek is what a tzaddik, you said, is someone who realizes their potential and lives it.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
So tzedek,
Okay, I want
tzedek.
credit for that.
You got it. They heard it.
Okay.
Tzedek to Dof means I identify my capacity and to do certain things in the world, and I live that capacity. Yeah, a tzaddik, as Rachel said, the tzaddik, not the person who does a lot of mitzvot. That very nice. Could be a chassid, could be whatever you want. Person who does a lot of mitzvot could be a regular guy or gal, right? The tzaddik is the person who hangs up the shingle and lives by the shingle. If you're an educator, you have to educate. If you're a gomel chesed, you have to be a gomel chesed. If you're politically astute, you have to work in that context. Okay, we say that we do it with an overwhelming focus to ourselves and our people, but tzedakah or tzedek means that I have the courage to hang up the shingle. We've talked about this many times, and then I pursue it in a way that is appropriate to me.
So
Yeah.
is the Chaim here and maybe elsewhere referring to active living versus passive living?
Absolutely.
And
That's right.
that's what this is
That-
saying.
Beautiful. I have to be very active. I have to be pushing very hard, and because I've identified who I am and what I do. And with that, a person has Hayim and is Yeroesh Eretz Yisrael, which is a different conversation on what that means in the broader sense, particularly for those who are not living there. We're going to talk about it more in depth. Okay?
Oh, wait, so Tichya, you're saying is Chaim? What, how are you?
I'm talking
translating
Chaim, as we're describing it, is
it?
life here and Olam Haba. It's both. That's how we're going to define the term Hayim. To say that it's only Olam Haba, we're not going to hold that way. We're going to say that it's only here. We're going to say it's both. All right? Great.
Are you on chapter 4 or on chapter
Huh?
5?
What?
Are you
We're still on chapter 3. The Div Lev and the Div Ratzon, just mention it very quickly. We said that we see it in these parshiot. Bnei Israel start out, HaKadosh Baruch Hu calls out to the Nidivei Lev to bring their gifts to the Mishkan and their skills. And in the process, there's a transformation of sorts of some who are referenced as Nidivei Ratzon. What does Nidiv Ratzon mean? We touched on it last time.
Bringing it 'cause you want to,
Generous
not
of the
because it's
spirit.
needed.
Generous of the spirit. It's not an action, it's who we are. So what we're talking about, what HaKadosh Baruch Hu is looking for, is not someone who does chesed, who learns Torah, who has a good time over there, does stuff. It's the person who is that. Okay? So we want to always have in mind Ratzon, the will, is the driving force in the human being. The person's Ratzon, his will, the driving, defining force. So we want to shape our will in the ways that we're talking about here. Okay. What I want to do actually, point number 6, I want to skip those and come back to them on Thursday, because I want to approach these key terms in Roman numeral 6 in a much more rigorous way. So I have a pamphlet that I wrote on this, where I'm going to bring some pesukim and some quotes from the Torah Sheba'al Peh and the rabbis on these, on Chokhmah, Binah, and so on. So I want to do it differently. So let's turn the page and we'll come back to it on Thursday, God willing. Okay. So Chorenu L'Chaim, Zikaron. Go to the next page, chapter 4, acquiring watchfulness. What does Zikaron mean?
Memory.
Huh? Nope. Don't mean memory. What does it mean? When we say Zochrenu L'Chaim, yeah, we say Zikaron, Yom HaZikaron.
Yes.
Huh? Yeah.
Is it like, isn't it asking for a merit of, no?
No, Zikaron. What is Zikaron? Give me Zikaron. What does it mean? Come on. Doesn't mean memory. If it meant memory, would it be on the paper? It doesn't mean memory.
You don't know.
Ah, here she is. All right. Super. I've
Perfect timing for the English translation.
I was shouting, not singing, shouting your praises to a bunch of people the
Oh,
other
my
day.
goodness.
A bunch of people. Vivian,
Yes.
Zikaron.
I don't like Zachor Yom Shabbat.
Yeah.
Maybe like a testimonial or.
So Yom HaZikaron. It would be like a testimonial. Keep going. What's Yom HaZikaron? What do we do with that?
It's the day that. Let me think of it. It's the day that God brings into, definitely a witness, judgment.
Yeah, beauty.
something in
It's all that
world.
beauty. So when we bring the concept of Zikaron in, we're saying as follows: Zikaron means identity. What does that mean? Zikaron is most often used in the context of teshuvah. Zikaron means that I reflect forward to what I want to be, to who I want to become. By doing so, I recast the past, right? So if a person did something negative in the past, and that inspires the person to be better in the future inspiration bubbles back to the past action, changes it to create a different person in the present. That's the system.
That's Kedusha, Zikaron L'Maaseh Bereshit. That's what we say in our Kiddush.
You want to say what Kedusha is?
Because when we say in our Kiddush on Friday night, Zikaron Bereshit, why are we remembering Bereshit? Besides that it's a witness of the Shabbat, it also allows us to go back
Nice.
to the very beginning.
Beautiful.
And it's a springboard.
Beautiful. Zikaron L'Maaseh Bereshit. Great. We'll actually talk more about that in a few minutes. Very nice. Okay, you with it? Good. Future, past, present. Future, past, present. The person who speaks about this a lot, people who speak about this a lot are Rav Soloveitchik and Rav Kook, both building it on Harambam. Okay, so Zikaron doesn't mean memory. It means this capacity to transform today based on something that I thought about that didn't happen yet, which reframes something that happened as part of reality to something different. And now I'm standing there different. Therefore, the question becomes, and Rav Soloveitchik and Rav Kook both deal with it, according to this perspective of Harambam, can a person change without an action, with just a thought?
No.
The answer is yes.
Zikaron.
Zikaron. Right. The answer is yes. Why? Because by projecting forward what I want to be, sincerely projecting forward, but we're also not talking about changing the world here. My projection forward could be 2 small, 3, 10 baby steps. Doesn't have to be more than that. By projecting forward, I recast the past. I create a new present. And nothing had to have happened. And that's the big question that's brought up. Al Pidin, if a person doesn't pray, right, or doesn't say he's apologizes to a friend, we actually touched on this, I think, in your house a number of months ago. If a person doesn't apologize for wrongdoing, but he does it all in his head, did he do anything? And the answer is absolutely. Okay, so when we use the term zikaron, which you're going to see again and again, zikaron is this remarkable element that serves as the foundation of teshuvah that allows us to project, to recast, and to be different. If it only goes on in a person's head, that's enough. Now, ideally, it goes further than that, right? It turns into action. Right? But at that moment, for example, if a person goes over to a lady and says, you are hereby sanctified to me based on the fact that I'm Shomer Shabbat. And the person is not Shomer Shabbat. But the person made the decision in his head that going forward, he's going to be Shomer Shabbat. Therefore, he recasts the past to create a new present. And if that lady says, okay, the guy it's Sunday. The guy was Mechalel Shabbat yesterday. What do you mean? Can a person transform himself? Absolutely. And that transformation is halachically regarded. And if anybody wants out, you have to nullify it. It's like nullifying a marriage. Okay?
She's
So,
marrying his future self.
huh?
She's marrying his future self.
That's right. And why can she do that? Even though, because, right? Beautiful. Very good. Okay? Good? Great. Okay. What is din? What is din? We call it judgment in English. What is it?
Is it consequence?
It's judgment. Consequence. Good. What else is it? I want to trouble you a little bit with this one.
The thing that I'm thinking about with this is reading back to chapter 4, when God was giving consequences to the various people in the Bible, and they gave a lot of examples.
Mhm.
It was like this justified consequence based off of what they did, but
Yeah.
then, but not if they did, not if they did the concept before this.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Beautiful.
Then that's
So din is what I'm stuck with when I didn't utilize zikaron.
right.
Beautiful. Great. Now, good. Viv, what do we consider din in the pecking order of the good things that God gave us? Think a minute.
Not great.
The best.
No, I thought,
Din is the best thing God did for us.
isn't being purely objective?
Yep.
Okay, so then don't we want Hashem's pity? We don't want objection, like, to be
Nope.
objective? All right.
You're
So-
saying like death, like if we didn't have being.
Let's go like this.
If we didn't have death, we didn't have life. If we didn't have.
No,
being,
no,
we
no,
didn't
no,
have
no.
life.
I don't want to go that far, but yeah, I got the most valuable thing that God gave us was an absolute demand of accountability.
So it's
There's
just a
nothing more
trusted
valuable.
system.
Nothing more valuable. You pass the light, you get a ticket. Period. Period. You can pass the light, you get a ticket. That's the way it works, right? We hold as follows: that without absolute reckoning and objective, sorry to say, Sarah, and I'm just, I'm just kidding, an objective reckoning, without an absolutely objective reckoning, people would be disaster cases, right? What is the best day of the year? Is Kippur and Rosh Hashanah. Those are the best days of the year. What do you mean? Yom Adin, there's a big discussion in the book of Ezra. I'm sure Vivian probably wrote on it and this and that on it, where he brings them back to Israel, right? Ezra and Nehemiah come back, 40,000 people. Probably Mordechai was with them, goes back and forth. And he's reading the Torah to them right before the Rosh Hashanah, right? And the people are crying. They're crying, right? They said, we're a disaster. Now, these are the people who came back. Everybody else was much more checked out. The people who stayed in Bavel, right? They're crying. They said, what are you, how are we going to go into Rosh Hashanah, right? He says, we're going to go in and we're going to beg and plead and cry to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He says, no, you're not. No, you're not. Yom Adin is a great day. Best thing that we do is we have accountability. By the way, with our children, is there something more important than there is a hard stop? There isn't a hard stop. There's a point where we say no. And there's a point where the law says no. And guess what? The Rachamim, where we say HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world with din, but then had to step off it and go to sympathy, it's a b'diavad. It's a by default. We don't want Rachamim. Rachamim enables dishonesty. It enables lethargy. It enables that. One second. So, din, judgment, again, forget the crazy black emotional stuff. Get it out of the way. If it's simply A yields B, is the way the world was built, the way the world should operate, the best days of the year, and we celebrate on Rosh Hashanah, right? The question that the rabbis bring: are you allowed to cry on Rosh Hashanah or not? The answer is no. What do you mean no? Isn't it Yom Hadin? Yeah. So get your act together and just pray and be objective and let's go.
So
What am I crying
I
about?
agree with that here.
Oh,
A
now
lot.
we're back. Okay.
No, seriously, I think that the way that they say that children need boundaries, they feel safer, that's B'nai Israel with Yom Hadin, like that
Good.
with Din. But
Okay,
I think
good.
that that's,
So I want you to be clear on Dean or judgment. It's not black, it's not onerous, it's not unfair, it's not quick to come. But if it didn't come, life would be awful. If there wasn't an accountability at some point, yeah.
Why are we always praying for Hashem to have pity on us?
Okay, because we want time to work things out. But we never pray for him to not have Din. Nobody ever came out and said, let's get rid of Rosh Hashanah. However, Rosh Hashanah, we sit and we celebrate with our families in big, beautiful meals. We wear new clothing. We're having a great time. Why? Because we welcome the accountability. We welcome coming clean. We welcome it. But if I'm a self-judging, I'm black, I can't see straight, it's all emotion, Rosh Hashanah is a disaster. But if it's subjective, okay. Look, I took this guy's book. This is my book. I took a guy's book, right? Okay, I figured out why I took a book, and I figured out how I'm going to avoid taking it next time. Future, past, present. So now I turned the liability into a positive, right? Good. And why I asked for Rachamim is Hashem's patience to give me the time to figure it out. That's what I want. I want the time to figure it out.
right,
Yeah.
that pause before the final Din, right?
Yeah.
So the ability to reflect and to do those changes and have those thoughts, if you just went from your action and like left it in the past and it never was anything, never looked at again, then it's D, right? Then that's it. But we're asking for that space.
Yeah, we're
that
asking for the
little bit of
space. And what does kapara mean? Yeah, Chava.
Don't ask me. I have
Why not?
something. From the word kaporet,
Yeah.
it actually means to cover up, which is very anti-intuitive because you think Yom Kippurim is the day that you're bearing your soul, but it's really not. It's the day that God gives us a chance to cover ourselves up.
Beautiful.
So that we could, because we recognize we're not perfect.
Yeah. You only had 200 people on your last class. You don't want to look at the thing?
We're making a statement and we're saying we're not perfect. We need to cover ourselves up. God recognizes that if he allows us to cover ourselves up, I use the example of the storefront while it's under construction.
Beautiful. Great.
And we say, please pardon our appearance while we make improvements to serve you better.
Perfect.
So that's what we're doing. Hashem gives us one day to say, I'm going to let you cover yourself up. I'm actually going to judge you. If you're willing to cover yourself up because you recognize you're not perfect, I'm going to judge you with the covering.
Beautiful.
I'm not going to judge you with the mess that's going on in the inside because you're taking the time to make the improvements. So I'm going to judge you on your future self.
Perfect. Beautiful.
Okay, I didn't know if that was anywhere near you wanted to go with it. Because it's very bound to the words kapara, kaporet,
That's right.
kaped,
Yeah.
to cover mibayit or michutz. It comes first. You have to
It's
first
beautiful.
cover your insides before your outsides. A lot that goes with that. But
Love it.
good.
Great.
Thank goodness.
Great. Perfect. No, perfect. Said it better than I would have said it, for sure. Teshuvah, we said, is ma'aseh, right? Is action and machshava. Again, halachically, machshava does the trick. Thought reshapes the person, brands the person just with the thought. You didn't get to the friend yet. You didn't make up with the friend yet. True. You have to get to the friend to make up with the friend if it's a Ben Adam Havero type of thing, right? You didn't figure out all the steps to avoid it. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Okay? So this is where we need to be now. One other quick point on this, and we've said this before, when a person uses zikaron, right, in the context of teshuvah, go back, change what was, right, to change to present and recast, by starting with the future to recast the past, change present. What happens with his makeup in olam haba? In other words, the person did something wrong. This person who asked the lady to marry him was Mechalel Shabbat yesterday. He said, now, you know what? I'm done. I'm not doing it anymore. What happens with that Chilul Shabbat based on his thought only?
It switches.
Huh?
It switches.
Beautiful. And what about in the eternal world? Do we have a, is it tethered?
Is what tethered?
Is
to
his,
the past?
is his thought here tethered to his action there that exists in an unbounded, unlimited, forever realm? Can I think something differently about myself here and change my forever makeup over there?
Yeah.
For sure.
Avad Hovei, yeah.
Yeah.
In that world,
That's it. Beautiful.
there is no-
Chaim. It's seamless. It's seamless. We shouldn't think of life and eternity. There's no such thing. It flows back and forth. It's all open. Yeah.
I think by his code, the first Zachar that happens, Hashem remembers Noah when he's in the Teva. Now, whatever happened, happened. But when he remembers him, that's when he brings the wind,
Beautiful.
and that's when the earth dries up.
Beautiful.
Because he
Beautiful.
said, what was, we're gonna now start fresh and new. And we're gonna, it's a good marker for us that,
That's right.
what was.
Perfect.
Don't bring the baggage.
Yeah,
Here, it's
yeah.
over.
Yep.
But that word is used.
I love it. That's right. Love it. Beautiful. Okay. Let's do one more piece. Rat, and then we're going to go into Bereshit. Rat, the mitzvah kala kebechamura, uboreach min ha'avera, shemitzvah goreret mitzvah, avera goreret avera, sachar mitzvah mitzvah, schar avera avera. I think it looks like I lost one word there. Sorry about that. We'll gear up that. But what is he saying here? You're all familiar with it. Chase a seemingly light mitzvah like a more stringent one. Run away from the negative stuff. A mitzvah begets a mitzvah, and avera begets an avera. Schad avera. Avera, schad mitzvah, mitzvah. What does that all mean? What is it?
It makes me think about the leaning into that we talked about.
Right,
Like if you're
exactly.
headed in a certain direction, you can continue in that direction.
You will.
You have to be headed there first.
Beautiful, beautiful. And if you lean in a certain direction, and you build certain people into your life, and you build certain circumstances into your life, one good begets the next, right? And if a person does the other thing, one negative begets the next, right? So we know that it's logical. But what the Ramchal is talking about is acting on it. And again, this is not Ramchal. This is more Rambam that the Ramchal is putting into this conversation. Okay, so if we understand, and there's another element here which we talked about years ago. What is the absolute reward and punishment for a mitzvah? Is there an absolute reward and punishment for a mitzvah? What would you say? Is an absolute. Reuven, Shimon, Levi, and three ladies do the same mitzvah. What's the story with that?
Oh, I'd say no.
No, or how does it work?
I'd say it's different for each person.
It's different for each person. Excellent. Based on what?
Based on where they are in their life.
Beautiful. And where they are that hour. That hour.
Ba'asher Husham.
Huh?
Ba'asher Husham.
Yeah, Basher Husham, right?
Mhm.
It's exactly where they are that minute. So what does it mean? That, as you said, if a person is leaning in a certain direction, A will yield B will yield C. It's just, right? It's part of the laws of nature at this point, right? Seems like that God built it into the laws of nature. But what the other thing that he builds in is a person's reward or otherwise vis-a-vis what he or she does is absolutely individual. It's individual to the moment. So a person could put on tefillin on Monday and he gets a certain level of credit, and he puts them on Tuesday and he gets an altogether different level of credit. It could be based on the challenges that were in his life doing that. It could be based on the kavanah, the intent and the focus that he had. It's totally wide open. So when you couple this with the fact that a person can go back and recast good to better and bad to good, and everything is absolutely in the moment, it talks about this incredibly moving, dynamic life that a person could change on a dime. Person can really change on a dime. And that's what the Ramchal is shouting from the rooftops. The Rambam is not shouting it from the rooftops. The Rambam is saying, if you don't get this, you could call yourself Jewish, but you're not. That's the way the Rambam puts it. He said, he goes, if you think that it's doing mitzvot, yes or no, and it's learning Torah, yes or no, and you're not involved and it's not dynamic and you're not working it, and he says, I don't know what you're doing.
Check the boxes.
Huh? You're checking boxes, right? You're checking boxes, exactly. Okay, one last point. When we say machmir, tavo alav beracha, that the stringent person, let's say the halacha is X, right? Sometimes we say, Maran Shulchan Aruch will say, the hamachmir, and the more stringent will be blessed. Now,
You mean strict?
huh?
Do you mean
Yeah.
strict?
Yeah, the more stringent, the more strict. Great. We'll be blessed. Now, let's go. I'm opening Shulchan Aruch, right? Opening Shulchan Aruch. I'll give you an example. Somebody is building a house, right? Hires a contractor. Hires the contractor to build it on a project basis, right? Okay, XYZ contracting. I don't want you to work on Shabbat, he tells him. I don't want you to work on Shabbat. How long is it going to take you? It's going to take me 8 months to finish the house, and it's going to cost X amount of dollars. Very good. Now, as it turns out, 8 months later, he was working there every Shabbat. Now, what do you do? What do you do? Some opinions say you can't enter the house. Tell me about. What do you want me to do with it? Oh, you could sell it, but you can't enter it. What? Very big problem. Other opinions, that might be Maran's opinion, by the way. Other opinions are that you have to stay out of the house the amount of days that he worked and he shouldn't have worked. If there's 8 months, 4 Shabbatot, and another, let's say, 6 Yamim Tovim, 38 days, you got to wait 38 days before you go into the house.
It's like the food. It's so laundry, it's like
Beautiful,
that,
beautiful,
right?
beautiful. Kedas yatam, beautiful, excellent. And then there's a little caveat put in there. V'machmir tavo alav beracha. If the person is more stringent, will be blessed by it now. Now, if you're trying to build your life according to din, according to halacha, what do you want me to do with that? What do you want me to do with the hamachmir? Everybody wants a beracha. You want me to do the beracha? You want me to not do the beracha? Should I always opt to be more stringent? The term machmir is a very, very difficult thing to work with. Okay?
I have a question,
Mhm.
because I think, like you said, it's difficult to work with, but I want to like break it down to aseh and lo taseh a little bit.
Okay.
Because I think with aseh, could be looked as like an elevation of the mitzvah,
Good.
which I think is a beautiful thing. And then
Yeah.
there's the sachar, and it's so nice, you know.
Right.
But lo taseh is like, now you're saying they're asking this guy to sell the house and not walking
Could be.
from machmir.
Could be.
So like that's a little bit different.
That's a little bit different, and it's a
Right.
little bit difficult. So what do you want to do with it? What do you want to do with it? You're reading the halacha. You didn't want the guy to work on Shabbat. You told him not to. He went out and did it. Okay, there's other questions that come in. Do you have to remind him every Friday afternoon, this, that? Let's leave that because we're not going into it in depth right now, right? But how do you want it?
Is the builder Jewish? Is that the problem?
If the builder is Jewish, it's a much bigger problem. We're talking about, very good, excellent. We're talking about a goy builder. If the builder is Jewish, it's a much bigger problem.
Yeah, but there's so many layers, because now also he's disrupting the Shabbat for all your neighbors who are
That's
Jewish.
another
Like,
issue.
there's-
That's
there's-
another
it's-
issue. Yeah, where is he
If you
building the
give him
house?
the job, tell him not to work on Shabbat, like the mechanic with the car,
Yep,
and then he chooses.
Yep.
that It's his day and his time, and he
Right.
decides to do it on his own. And so we're okay with that.
yeah.
I
Well,
don't
you
think
have an
it's
issue to Sarah's point. You have an issue to Sarah's point about my ayin. You have an issue over there. But there's also this little appendage that says that there are a few options here. The person who's most strict will get a bit of hot from it. So my point is like this. to just bring in the term machmir and to understand it a little bit, not a lot, but just an introduction to it, because we'll do it further, God willing. To be machmir in something, sometimes it's the deen. Sometimes the halacha is you have to be machmir. Okay, don't talk about. But when it says machmir, tavo ala beracha, will be blessed through his action, the person has to look at himself and evaluate himself and establish for himself whether being more strict than the deen in this case is appropriate for him and his growth. So the halacha, we say there's nothing more valuable than deen, right? As we said a little while ago, deen, absolute judgment. There is a point of a hard stop, and that is it's essentially important for a human being, without which he could not live. If there was only sympathy, there'd be no reckoning, there'd be no life, there'd be no accountability. If you never take a test, you got to take a test someday on some level in some platform, right? You have to. Okay. Machmir now says that a person should know himself, herself, to a point where he says, in this case, because of what I want, because of the derech that I'm leaning towards, Sarah, as you brought back, I want to be more strict. Now, you can't be more strict anytime you want. You can only be more strict in cases where the halacha allows for that stringency, for that strictness. You can't make it up. Can't make it up, right?
You can't add and
You can't add. That's right, beautiful. But have in mind that the term machmir, to be stringent and strict, is a term that he's going to use in the Mesilat Yesharim. You need to know what the term means, and you need to know that in certain cases, not in certain, I want to say it differently. In the broader scheme of things, the chumrah is based on the individual's sense of self.
I have a question, because we were talking a lot about thought changing the past and all of that. Just using this example, what if the guy says, wow, I can't believe this happened. I think the next time that I engage in any kind of something with someone else, and I have to be more clear, I have to check in, I'm gonna,
Right.
like if he thinks that, does that change
Great,
anything?
that's great.
Or,
Yeah, we said future, past,
okay, so
present.
does he have to,
Good.
like, what,
Yes.
where is Machmir there? What's,
It's so case specific. It's case specific. It's individual specific. What if you were with a group of people and you engaged in a business, right? And something went out of whack. Let's say, right? Something went out of whack. Does everybody in the business have to respond the same way? Al pi halacha? Not necessarily. This person is more well known in the community. He better do it differently. This person is much less known. Different concept, like you mentioned, maritai and neighbors, right? All these things come into play. There are certain things that are okay al pi din, but certain people just shouldn't do them because they are who they are. And for that person, it's not appropriate. What do you mean? Isn't the deen black and white? No. It is and it isn't. It's a big thing. And therefore, when you see the term machmir, understand that it's a term that we can't ignore. We have to work with it. And we don't run to be machmirim, especially Sfaradim, never. But it's not something where we can ignore it. It's very individualized, not very, but it's a good portion of the time individualized. Yeah.
Is there a distinction between a private machmir and a public machmir?
That's a fantastic question. It's a fantastic question. And really, Vivian's question is there a distinction between a private and a public action of chumrah? The answer is yes and no. The answer is yes and no.
I don't have a problem with a personal machmir. The person wants to take something on to themselves, but a public machmir is border on a little bit dangerous. You could end up posing more problems.
Yeah, and that's why people have to make very careful decisions. Yes, we have to make very careful decisions, but with a lot of future perspectives in mind when
Like
these
the
decisions.
reverse of the maritai is
Yeah.
if you're machmir in public.
That's right.
Now,
Yeah, you have to weigh. You have to you have to know, excuse the banality of it, but you have to know your customer. You have to know your customer. And a person has to know himself. And a person who feels that this chumrah, this strictness, will make him better at this point in time should do it. Now, there are times when a strictness is completely inappropriate. We don't just go ahead and make these decisions. We have to look at the halacha and say, is this strict? Like, for example, what's the classic strictness that we don't like? Is a nazir. Who are you to decide that some of the most beautiful things on earth you want to exempt from your life? Who are you to do that? The truth is, we're not so happy with the nazir, right? We're not so happy with him. But there are certain people who made decisions in the course of their lives that to be a nazir enabled them to be better people. Okay, so these are complicated points, but the reason I want to put it on the table today is because you will see the term machmir, stringent, in this book, and it's very important to hear it in the context of, to your point, Bim, what do we do in the broad picture, and what do I do in the individual picture? And the same way that a person may say, it's okay for child A to do this, but not okay for child B. Well, what do you mean? Aren't we all the same family? Don't we have all the same core values? Yes, but you can't do it. What are you talking about? Aren't I like my brother? Yes and no. Okay, good. Good. But it's on the plate. It's on the table.
Where does the word machmir, what's the root of it?
To make it more chamor, to make it more, okay, good. To make it more weighty. Make it more weighty. It's like COVID. It's like kaved. Yeah, kavod.
Like Homer and Lebanon.
Yeah, it's with the chet. Yes.
So that maybe it
Yeah.
like Homer,
Beautiful. You
like
could say that.
clay, like
Yeah. Yes.
earthy.
Yeah. Very nice. All right.
You think of it in those terms.
Yeah. Now you can picture it more clearly. All right. I'm going to grab a hot water and we'll start Bereshit. Thank you, Sarah.
Because sometimes the SE posts the class, but there isn't.
Yeah,
Always
just
post
goes
the class,
to
but
me.
he didn't post
Oh, he
it,
did?
so I was
That's
like,
fine.
maybe it is. So I did a smart thing. I said, really, I'm not gonna get there. So I zoomed in from my house.
And then walked
I
in.
drove here.
Thank you. That always works.
Seamlessly.
That works. So
Oh, Zoom is a
you
great.
came to the 10 o'clock? No, just to the 11.
I came towards the, I came in the middle of
you
the
did.
tent, but I didn't want to miss it.
Right,
halfway in,
right,
so I said,
right.
I'll Zoom and then I'll drive. I had it on in the car.
Nice. Yeah, we couldn't get it together today, then. I don't know. Why couldn't
No.
Leslie just come at 3:30? She wasn't
She
catching
was
up
the
to
one that
that?
was having the cold. I don't know
Yeah.
what was up with
All right,
that. I don't
whatever.
wanna push
I have to
it.
do errands. I'll do my errands.
Oh, thank you.
How was Florida? Nice.
Moving. The weather was gorgeous.
Still crowded?
Gorgeous. There's a whole world that happened.
Yeah. We haven't been there in a while.
Started like a ladies group. So when I was there, I taught
Okay,
live
okay, nice.
by Paula Hertzberg. She was like a penthouse apartment.
Oh, nice.
Valhalla, beautiful, a whole apartment, full artifacts. She only buys Jewish artists. She commissions things. She has a native funding. You know, she like travels all over.
Wow.
It's beautiful. It's like really like a museum, and everything's in a glass box. You
Wow.
can see it perfectly.
Where is that?
The woman who's Valhalla, her name is Paula Hertzberg. She has an apartment. I teach in her. I Zoom from her apartment.
Ah.
These kids want to buy one, get one. Anyway. And I was telling them her whole apartment, all artifacts.
Huh?
She had commissioned a Sefer Torah, small traveling one. Katie flew the.
It's
Sefer
great,
Ed.
yeah.
Wow.
She said that so bad doesn't even make that way at auction. So it's
Wow.
like crazy, you can't get one. Everywhere you look, you have
Nice.
she has a hand with a blue thing hanging like this. She went to India.
Wow.
She went up to the attic and flew there. She bought it from the Shamosh. Like she's all for
Ah, love it.
very.
Oh, how did she connect to you?
I met her in the Safra shul. Then we were both praying together in the Magen David of Surfside. She always wanted to host in her house, whatever, it was a beautiful apartment. I started bringing lunch. Everybody bring something. Now I'm not there, they're having a film, the film club. Or
Oh, yeah?
Like, turned themselves into
Right,
a
right,
little-
so
Wow. Okay, what we're gonna do, we are gonna move more quickly. Yeah. And highlight key terms, key concepts, and then key people, okay? Okay. What did we say was or? Let's go to the first perek, Pasuk Gimel, the third pasuk, first chapter, third pasuk. The term or means what?
Knowledge.
Great, means knowledge. Very good. When you see the term vayera, vayar, same thing, right? When we see the term vayera, vayera, right? Whenever we see the term this that's all built on order, it could have a basic component to it of actually seeing something or someone, but it's always built on a greater level of knowledge and understanding that the person acquired or is acquiring. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu ve'era Hashem el Abraham or Abraham is giving him another level of knowledge. Okay, so the order that the world was established with on day one is knowledge and not light. Vaya Elokim et haor ki tov. Right? What is tov? Said the word tov. What does the word tov mean? Hi, Margie. How are you? What does the word tov mean? Hmm? It is what? Say it again.
The things that Hashem created go on to create.
Beautiful. It's perfectly imperfect. That's how we phrase it. That's an Izzy Levy coinage. That which was created will create. Now we're going to touch on it, but I want to just talk about this in a minute. We say that this is HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This is Mitziut. This is everything that ever was is here. Let's say. Let's picture this, right? So we don't say that this is God and he created the world. We don't say that. We say that this is God, this is Mitziut or existence, and the world is in here. This is very important. Why is it important to say this rather than say this? What's the difference?
Hashem encompasses all. Otherwise, something is separate from him.
And therefore what?
It's impossible.
Huh?
He's a part of it and it's a part of him.
Why? Why is that important? Yes, you're right. Why is it important? Come on.
He can't be separate from anything.
Why?
Because then there's maybe that created him.
Right.
I
What
don't know.
created what? What came first? And if there's this and there's this, then this has a boundary exclusive of this. Right? Good. So we're going to touch on this, God willing. This is the first of Rambam's 13 principles. Very, very important. Starts with, this is Mitziut. This is HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Okay? God doesn't create the world. God creates the world and it sits in here. It doesn't sit here. So to Rachel's point, if God created the world and it sat here, then this is limited in some respect because I got to make room for this because it's outside of God. But if this is inside God, that's how we understand it. Good?
So you're
Now-
saying everything is inside God.
Beautiful. Perfect, Shelley. Everything is inside God. Great. Now, what's the rub? The rub is that this, which is, let's call this planet Earth, right, is over here, right? Now, What HaKadosh Baruch Hu does is he puts this here inside him, and he sets up a structure where the inhabitants of this can go out and do their own thing. What are you talking about? If this isn't here, if this is here, no problem. You could say that, of course, this could do its own thing because it stands independent. If this sits here, you're going to tell me it could do its own thing? The answer is yes. This is what Tob means. Tob means that it was perfect based on the imperfect, unfinished system that is the only system that would make any sense and which what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted. So every time you do something, Shelley, right, you're impacting this scenario, and you have almost absolute freedom to do what you want. Okay?
So that's the free will.
Yeah, you're good. Yeah. But let's start to get comfortable with this sitting here and not sitting here. Now, what did Amalek say? What was Amalek's perspective? What's Aristotle's perspective? Rambam talks about it. Amalek's perspective, which Aristotle and others picked up later on, was HaKadosh Baruch Hu is here. The world is here. There was some primal element that made the world, but that primal element checked out and doesn't care about the world. And by the way, Amalek says, really based on Esav's perspective, his great-great-grandpa, based on Esav's perspective, Amalek says, are you joking? You're going to tell me that what goes on over here by you, me, him, and her, that this maker cares about this? How silly can you get? Esav, i.e. Amalek, later on, doesn't negate the fact that there's a God. He simply says, he's not wasting time with us. And of course, he doesn't say that this lives within this. If this lives within this, it makes it infinitely more complicated. To say that God is connected this way makes it infinitely more complicated. What do you mean? There's no barrier between this and this? There's no separation? Okay, no. Okay, got it. Fine, very good. Oh, now you're telling me it's in here? So there's free will, to Shelley's point, in here. There's the opportunity for individual creation, for individual expression in here. Yes, that's Tob. And every time we see the word Tob in the creation process, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is affirming this stronger. But you can see why Amalek was so powerful, because his argument is logical. His argument is, here's the world, here's God, I'm saying, here's the world he created, and what? You're going to tell me he cares about the grass growing or the rain falling or this nation or that baby? What are you talking about? How silly can you get? Okay, we agree with you. There is this God. But come on. We're not ignoring the fact that there's a primal creator. That's why Esav is so challenging to us. Because what he's saying is he's not, if they rejected God, then it would be much easier to deal with him. He doesn't reject God. He builds a very logical argument. He says, wait a minute, you're saying that you live in here and that your action after you say you live in here is an independent action and that you're going to define your destiny? Come on, guys. Come on. By the way, Esav wasn't, he was a giant, right? He was a giant. He wasn't a thing. He wasn't a baby. You know, we trivialize him. We make him into this black personality, but he wasn't, right? Good? Yeah.
The whole looking, so if I'm doing that, and this is us,
Yep.
if our independent actions and our thoughts and all the things that we are doing, we could very much face outward. It does and decide those things. It doesn't mean God's not there. It's just we're facing that way. But if we turn back,
Okay, good.
he's right
Beautiful.
there. So it's like easy for Amalek or Esav to see those things because they're not looking.
Beautiful. Good. But they had the opportunity. Esav had the opportunity, right? Daddy, mommy, he had the opportunity, right? Okay. He makes a choice. And by the way, his choice is the most catastrophic choice there could be. Why are we so down on Esav? Because he's smart enough to destroy the world. Because his argument is a very sophisticated one. To say that the world Big Bang, this, that, hard to say that. Is even for hardcore scientists to say that it all just happened because it happened, hard for people to say it. Okay, people do. Hard for people to say it. But say, yeah, it exists, but it's separate, and he's tinkering in your life and he has a relationship with you, that's not hard to say. That's not true. And that's why it's up. And that's why when we see the war with Amalek, the language is so convoluted. Right? I'm sure you taught this. That's all. It was all based on that. It's all based on that. Oh, by the way, what's 2.0 of that story? Purim. It's a replay of the same problem. People go through all these intellectual jumps and this, that, to identify what the Jewish people of Babel did, and the Jewish people of that empire, how they sinned, what they sinned with. It's very simple. This is Amalek 2.0. It's very clear. Everybody knows it. This is the Haman is the great-great-great-grandson of Amalek, who's the grandson of Esav, right? Hayesh Hashem b'kirbenu im ayin. It was the same thing.
You gotta translate that.
Huh? Is God within our beauty? Is God within us or not? Is God within us or not? Right? So what happens? They come off of the bitter waters, right? And Hakadosh Baruch Hu with Moshe Rabbeinu, hits the rock first time, creates the miracle. So now we have Kiryat Shemsu, we have the Exodus from Egypt, right? After all the Makot, we have the splitting of the sea, we have the man, food just checking in, right? I think it checks in my house anyway. I don't know. I guess no, it still does that. No, oh no, you cook it. I thought it just came. Appeared. It doesn't appear. It doesn't just happen now. Okay. And then you have the bitter waters who, and then a minute later, Vivian's point, the editor, so to speak, of the Chumash is looking at the Jewish people saying, Hayesh Hashem b'kirbenu im ayin, and boom. You know what? Let's open it a minute. Let's open it. Go to Parashat B'Shalach. Let's look at it in a minute. Okay.
On bottom of 390.
What page?
390.
390. Thank you. Okay. So, So we have the issue of the water, right? Moshe talks to the Jewish people, go up a few lines on 390, and he says, imadi, nasun et Hashem. Why are you testing God? The people wanted water. Yeah, on 390. Go to Pasuk 3-4. Moshe is panicking. He said, the people are going to stone me. He tells him to hit the water, to hit the rock, and the water comes out. Good. Now look at the Pasuk Zion, Pasuk 7. It says, "Vayikra Hashem hamakom hahu masa umriva," right? A place of a test and a place of conflict. Ariv b'nei Yisrael v'anasotam et Adonai de'emor hayesh Hashem b'kirbenu im ayin. Right? What does that mean? What does it mean? Is God within us or not? What does it mean? And then immediately afterwards, after the Torah sort of editorializes and says, is God within the people within? Is he part of the people or not? What happens? Boom. Amalek comes on the scene. So why does Amalek come on?
You're saying it's punishment to them?
Of course, huge
Where there's
punishment.
doubt,
When there's,
if there's doubt,
that's right.
or this is what a world looks like that God wouldn't be a part of.
Beautiful.
If he's gonna create that void, it's gonna
Beautiful.
be filled with Amalek.
That's right. If you're going to create, if God is not within us, then Amalek is welcomed back. He's welcomed back. Amalek comes on the scene, no territorial disputes with the Jewish people, nothing. Moshe turns to Yoshua, go out and fight him, right? And then what do? And Vivian, I think I've read something that you wrote on this maybe years back about arms lifted up. So you want to speak to it?
Well, now after what you said, I'm thinking of the arms differently. I'm thinking of the visual of the integration. Moshe is up on the mountain, literally like it's as if he's holding onto the heavens and he's showing the heavens and earth are.
That's what's
are
happening
one.
here. What are you telling me with that? When Moshe Rabbeinu raises up his arms, our forces are winning. And when he gets tired and his arms come down, it's exactly that point. Moshe Rabbeinu is demonstrating we're absolutely connected. There's an absolute connectedness, a seamless connection. And then what does it say here?
Yad al kes yad.
Right.
Amalek has his hand trying to,
Mhm.
trying to dethrone God, but we're trying to
That's right.
connect with God.
And then what do we say? We say, where are we? Okay. Okay, we put his arms on the thing. Okay.
And
It says, look at Pasuk Yudalad, page 392. It says, Kadosh Baruch Hu tells him, write this down in the book of Zikaron, right? Past, future, present. This is going to be going on for a while. The Amalek thing ain't going to end. Ki macho it's zechet Amalek. What are you talking about? You're gonna uproot the Zikaron. How do we explain what Zikaron is, right? It's what the future looks like will recast the past. God is going to uproot the Zikaron of Amalek, the impact of Amalek. And then we say that there is going to be a war with Amalek forever and ever. And where is the word emunah here? Beautiful. Vehi adav emunah. What does that mean, emunah? What do we say emunah means? Emunah means loyal, right? Loyalty. Emunah means loyalty, right? Yeah. Okay, so good. Emunah means loyalty. So when there's a level of loyalty, there's no Amalek.
One very beautiful piece I was looking for. It's in Parashat Zachor, which is 1066, where it says, remember what Amalek did to you? Because you were whatever, here it is. זכור אשר עשה לך עמלק בדרך בצאתכם ממצרים, אשר קרחה בדרך, ויזנב בך כל נחשלים אחריך, ואתה יגף ויגע, ולא ירא אלוהים. It doesn't mean that he didn't have he didn't have a sense of awe of God. You yourselves were asking the question means that you didn't have yirah. You didn't have.
So how are we defining the term yirah? Beautiful. How we term yirah?
Yirah.
Knowledge, right? Or yirah, knowledge.
Knowledge, or and seeing, not just see the perception, the way you're perceiving it is with a sense of awesomeness, seeing it as something great and fabulous, because people translate yirat shamayim as fear.
No, it's not
never
fear. Beautiful. It's never fear. Beautiful.
So if you're not going to have awe and hold the relationship to that level,
that's right.
Then you're opening the door to
exactly.
Back to what we were discussing about ourselves. In the absence of awareness, there's Yetzer Hara.
That's right.
Yes.
Beautiful. Perfect.
So that's the Amalek. In the absence of your awareness of God and him, keeping him in your life, then Amalek comes in.
Beautiful. Now, what the scary part is that everybody could be keeping Shabbat and doing mitzvot, and Amalek would come. Hi, how are you? Good. Nice to see you. Wow, long time. So nice to see you. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Hi, how are you?
See you.
Oh, hi, how are you? Great. Wow, how you been?
Good.
Everything okay? Good? Wow, so happy to see you. Thank you for coming. So the rub here is that everybody could be doing mitzvot.
Well, we see this today. How many people say, it doesn't matter what I do, as long as I'm a good person? Hashem doesn't care if I, check
Beautiful.
my lettuce, if I, whatever.
I'm going the other way. I'm going to go the other way. Okay. The person checking the lettuce, Lo alenu, Amalek will still come. What do you mean? Isn't she checking the lettuce? Isn't
I'm
she
saying
checking
that
this?
person has that Amalek in him. The one who says that doesn't. they don't-
I want you to go to a
cares about the small things.
Beautiful. But I want you to go the other way on it. The other way on it goes like this. The person could be checking her strawberries very, very rigorously and be a contributor, Lo alenu, to Amalek coming. Why? Ha'im yesh Hashem b'kirbenu im ayin vayirah. Do we have that knowledge, that connection? HaKadosh Baruch Hu's hands are up. What do you mean? We're going to zecher Amalek. We're going to have a zikaron to erase him. The language is so hard to deal with, except if I understand what's going on here. If I understand that and Harambam writes it. He writes something shocking in the beginning of the 13 principles. Harambam writes. Sarah, you with me? Harambam writes that if someone keeps all the mitzvot, nobody can do that, but assume someone keeps all the mitzvot, but doesn't keep these 13 principles, he's out. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? Because the Amalek thing, Lo alenu, comes on from this, because I'm not inside God. I'm not living it, eating it, breathing it. I'm not here. I'm here. I'm doing stuff. I'm learning stuff. I'm not here.
The heart and the brain.
It's the heart and the brain. Now I'm fusing them. The heart is the brain. I want to put it this way, right? The brain is sitting inside the heart. Okay, you could put it that way or that way. But let's look at it for a minute as the brain sitting inside the heart. If the brain is sitting over here, or even over here, even doing all the mitzvot, that person, according to Harambam, does not have a chance for Olam Haba. Unbelievable. But if the person is sitting in here, if he or she knows that everything that ever was, is, or will be is God, and we sit inside him, not a creation of his separated, we sit inside him with the absolute remarkable ability to think individually, to reason individually, to make individual choices, to take individual actions, all sitting within here. That's a grand slam. So in Babel at the time, there's a Targum. We learned it many years ago together. We learned parts of it together many years ago. There's a Targum on the Megillat Ruth. It's called Targum Sheni. It was written a little bit after the Targum of Yonatan ben Uziel on the books of the prophets. And the Targum, what the Targum did is it went behind the scenes, so to speak, and fleshes out all the details. You know what? We may have a class on Thursday, special class for Purim. It's we'll see. We may do that. We'll take a piece from it. And what do you? Huh?
What is a Targum?
Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me. An interpretation. I'm sorry. My apologies. Now, in the Targum, they flesh out a number of things which are very valuable, which we don't see. What was the full gist of what Mordechai tells Esther when he tells her, the salvation is going to come from somewhere else. Okay, but what else did he tell her? There's 2 or 3 paragraphs, according to this interpretation, on what he told her. Okay. What does Mordechai and Haman, what goes on between the two of them when Achashverosh tells Haman to put Mordechai on the royal horse, dressed in royal garb, proclaiming throughout Shushan that this is what's done to the person who the king favors. What was really going on when Esther was taken? But to me, the part that is the most chilling about this is they write what Achashverosh's decree, what was written in his decree. When he sends out the decree, the one the first one, he writes as our rabbis understood that it was written. And what does he write? He writes, goes as follows. He says, listen, I met a guy, his name is Haman. He comes from outside, not from our immediate circles. He has great lineage. His grandfather is Amalek and Reuel and Esav. He comes from great lineage. He comes from great wealth. He comes from power. And he told me about these miserable people, these Jews. And you know what? He told me that there were 600,000 men that left Egypt. And he said he would give me a coin for each one of those men if he could murder all of them. And you know what? It was a simple question to me, Ahashverosh says. So I answered it quickly and I said, sure. And then he goes, and you know what I did after that? I went and I had a party and I ate and I drank and I enjoyed. And now he tells his countrymen, he tells the noblemen that ran each of the 127 vassal states, he tells them, and I want you to do the same thing. On the 13th and 14th of Adar, which was 11 months ahead, he says, take your spears and take your swords and just kill them all and take everything they got. And if they're noblemen, kill them. If they're aristocrats, kill them. If they're righteous, kill them. If they're rabbis, kill them. If they're children, kill them. He puts all this down on a thing. And he says, and by the way, don't even think about it. Because I'm not thinking about it. I'm having a party. I'm having my shtiyah, my ochel, and a mishteh. Now, when you read that, you literally start to tremble. Because when we read the Megillah, we quickly go through the fact that there was a decree. But 1 second, this was much worse than Egypt. In Egypt, there was never a decree to destroy the Jewish people, right? This was the worst of the worst of the worst. It was never this bad, right? Hitler took the pages from him, right? Kind of thing. Okay, so what is the basis of all this? Okay, people are going to say that they paraded the kelim of the Beit HaMikdash and Ahashverosh's party, and Jewish people are saying things. That deserves the punishment of absolute destruction? What are you talking about? Oh, Ahashverosh wearing the clothing of Aaron, HaKohen. And, oh, they drank wine that was unkosher wine, whatever it might be. Nothing makes sense. What you have to know that makes sense is that they invited in Amalek because they became cavalier about the mitzvot. You don't have to go to a point of saying that, God is here and the world is here to invite Amalek. If you start to do your thing, if mitzvot become mechanical, it's just another version of it. It's no different. If we get rid of the od, the vayad, right, the hands held, the emunah, yeah, then and this separation becomes a distinct separation, then we don't have Hashem b'kidbenu. We don't have HaKadosh Baruch Hu within us. And having HaKadosh Baruch Hu within us is very, very difficult. But I'll tell you something, and it goes back to the first class. A lot of the principles that we're doing in that enable this kind of thing, enable it to happen. And God willing, and a better understanding of Bereshit will as well. But it's all connected together, right? The Or, the great knowledge, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is overwhelmingly knowledge. If it sits inside of us, right? It's not something I'm reaching for. It's in me. I just need to pull it up. But to pull it up, I need to be actively, aggressively, dramatically living it, not doing it. There's a huge, most people are doing stuff. I do chesed, I do learning, I do work. Okay, guess what? When it comes to the context of the relationship that well, let's say in a relationship, somebody would look at it as a task-oriented thing. With a relationship between a parent and child, how successful would it be if it was task-oriented? It would be a disaster. We don't do things for our kids. We love them to the end of the earth. We're invested in their life to the end of the earth. We're completely immersed with them. And by the way, when you think of a child and a parent, the child is here, right? It's a similar model, right? The child is here, independent, individual, within the context of the parent, given his
So that's what you mean when you say living.
Yeah, that's right. Living it and not doing it. Exactly. So when we see the term Tob, in the Chumash, we're on page, I don't know what page you guys are on. We're on page 2, but we will be getting to page 3 any day now. Okay. Tob means perfectly imperfect. It means us within HaKadosh Baruch Hu with the right to do what we want. Good. By Abdel, what is Havdalah? What does that mean?
Separate.
Huh? Separate, right. Why is separating a form of creation? Why is it? By Abdel, and God separated. Why is that a form of creation? What do you say?
It has a beginning and an end.
Huh?
It has a beginning and an end.
Before we didn't get to that yet, but we're going to get to that in a few minutes. Yeah.
Because by separating it's the creation of something new.
Beautiful. When I separate, I create different identities, right? So by separating water A to water B, that's considered a creative act. So we need to know when a person thinks about something new, that's a creative act. When a person speaks something and names something, Vayikra, to name something is an act of creation, right? We consider Vayikra an act of creation. Good. Vayavdel, what do you mean? There's water and water. What did you create? But Havdalah in life, based on the model and example of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that's a creative format. And therefore, talk to me. Therefore what?
I was waiting for you to separate the light from the dark.
Ah,
I thought
come
that was
on.
much more exciting than separating the two waters.
Talk to me about Vayavdel. Talk to me about Vayavdel, about the separation. We say that separating is a creative process, right? It's a creative process. And therefore, it becomes a halachic question as well. When can I separate? When can't I separate? When must I separate, right? We have the most obvious separation between Shabbat and non-Shabbat, right? Then we have more nuanced separations, like the separation between a holiday and a non-holiday. And then there's another separation between Chol Moed and the holiday. Now, the Vayavdel, because it's considered creative and impactful, it has halachic, it resonates halachically. So when I have to make a distinction, for example, between Chol Moed, which is Tuesday, let's say, and Yom Tov, which was Monday. What do you mean? Isn't it all Pesach? Right? It is, but it isn't. But 1 second, there's a Havdalah here. There's a separation. The separation is not just theoretical. It's not just conceptual. It's very practical and halachic. So when we see elements of creation in here, we don't leave them here. We drag them through to the last conversation in halacha, right? How do I have to separate this item from that item? What about separating things in my mind in terms of what I think about on Shabbat? What? Yeah, isn't Havdalah, isn't separation an action? If separating wasn't an action, then it wouldn't have halakhic consequences. But once separating is an action, then I can do certain things and not do other things. But it was the same thing a minute ago. But once I separated these cups, and in my mind, for example, I established that I'm going to use these cups on Shabbat, and I firmly said, and I'm just using a quick, exaggerated example, I firmly said, I'm not going to use these cups on Shabbat. I can't use them because I made a separation in my mind. And because separating means something, it creates a new reality about X. Halachically, according to Jewish law, this has a different status. How come, what if I take a hammer? Can you use a hammer on Shabbat?
Oh, no.
Good. Why not?
Building.
Huh?
It's building.
Beautiful. Because its primary function is to build and to correct and to fix, right? What if I take the hammer, here's my hammer, and I decide on Friday afternoon, a minute before Shabbat, I'm going to use this hammer to break nuts. Can I use it? I made a Havdalah. I was Mavdil. I separated this. I have 12 hammers. Remember that one? With the toolkit? She
Yeah.
got me a toolkit for one gift. It was disaster.
The first Father's Day after Jerry's born, I thought. it was
What
such
am
a
I gonna
good
do with a
gift.
toolkit? What are you?
Pain-
I'm still traumatized. I am still to this day. I see that toolkit, I start to shake. What am I doing with a toolkit?
You know,
Why? Wow.
I would love that.
Thank
Mm,
Okay.
yeah. So if you take the hammer and you separate it for a different function, it takes on a different halachic status. Once again, I had 12 hammers. I took this hammer and I decided this hammer is going to break nuts.
So you're saying you could use it on
Of
Shabbat?
course,
Designate.
of course I can use it. So Havdalah, so the terms you're learning here, they're not limited to Bereshit. They flow through to everything, right? Told, perfectly imperfect, the ongoing relationship between man and God and this world, right? Vayad, knowledge, intelligence, right? Havdalah, action, real action in terms of all the way down 5,000 years later to the hammer. All of these things are real. What about Asiyah? Vaya'as. What about Vaya'as? Turn to, okay, Vayikra we talked about. Magdil we talked about. Turn to, let's see. Vaya'as, turn to verse 7. Vaya'as Elokim et Rakia. What do we say about that? Chapter 1, verse 7. God made the firmament, which means what? What do you say?
Yes, I am. It's not such an easy.
You're right. Leave that. You're right. I'm with you. Yeah, 100%. Right. Don't go there, Viv. Go to the other. Talk to me about term Vaya'as. What is Asiyah?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's a yesh mi yesh. It's something from something, right? Do we see that in Jewish life? Of course we do. Of course we do. We talk about things like on Shabbat, like boneh and makeb patish, constructing something, completing something. Where does it come from? It comes from here. It comes from the fact that HaKadosh Baruch Hu framed for us the creative elements that he did, therefore we do, therefore there's going to be a halachic scope built around them. Good.
So actually, what does the word firmament mean?
Yeah.
And it's the atmosphere. We call it atmosphere.
Oh, okay.
We call it atmosphere. Yeah. Good.
Yeah, I think.
Let's go another minute. Let me ask you guys something. Can we, should we talk about business on Shabbat?
No, say no.
The answer is no. Excellent. What's your first name?
Ruth, guys.
Ruth. Okay. Should we talk? Answer is no. Yeah. What about thinking about business on Shabbat? What do you say?
It's hard to control your thoughts.
Beautiful. Perfect. It's hard to control your thoughts. So according to the Ben Ish Chai, you can't be thinking about business either. He qualifies it, as does Maran. And he says that a piece of business that was finished and is closed, a person can reflect on Shabbat because there's no takeaway. There's no action related to that thought, right? There can't be an action. But yeah, interesting, right? But something that's still in process, you're not supposed to think about on Shabbat. Good. Why not? Why not? We have the 39 melachot, yeah? We have the 39 laws, prohibitions, and everything that comes from them. Why can't I think about something?
So it leads to an action. It's the first step, and it's an active component of you.
Right. So don't even go to thought leads to an action. Go back to Bereshit Bara and tell me what thought is. Thought is an action. Thought is an action. Thought is a creative expression. And therefore, when it comes to thought, I have to manage halacha in reference to thought. Why? Nothing happened. Nobody said anything. It doesn't matter. We said in Bereshit that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, with the term bara, created, every time we use the term bara, I like to hear your thoughts on this. But the Malbim holds that every time we use the term bara, it's yesh me'ayin every time. Okay, you good with that? Okay, yesh is something from nothing, and it's with thought, because thought is something from nothing, right? There was nothing there before. Person thought about it. If the person thought about it and then acts on it, it's already something from something. Right? So if I thought it, it's something from nothing because I thought it into existence. If once I thought it into existence and I started to shape it or separate it or build it, that's considered something from something. So we have the term bara in the context of man, and then we have the term asiyah, which is more actionable, so to speak, and yetzirah, which is more about refinement. All of those actions that are creative in essence are dragged all the way through Judaism. Everything is connected back to Bereshit. And what we can do or can't do on Shabbat or in general, what's considered an action is invariably tied back to this. So that's one of the reasons we're doing this, is to create this complete picture. Okay. Now let's do a couple more and we'll pause. Yeah, I want to talk about that in the second chapter. So I want you to hold that, okay? But we will get back to it because your question is made much stronger and much worse in terms of the issue in the second chapter. Right? He can means and so it was, right? But when we start chapter 2, we see so it wasn't. Because in the version of Bereshit in chapter 2, everything that, so to speak, so it was, by Hichen, it became, boom, it existed, did not. So what are you talking about? And so we're going to talk about that. So hold the by Hichen for till next week. Okay, go to Pasuk Yudal a minute and we'll wrap with this. All right, Rachel, you want to read Pasuk 11? Sarah B'chavod.
מזריע זרע עץ פרי עושה פרי למינו אשר זרעו בו על הארץ ויהיה.
Read it in the English a minute and tell me what's going on here. Yeah, please.
God said, let the earth sprout vegetation, herbage yielding fruit, fruit trees yielding fruit, each after its kind, continuing and seed on it.
Remember our model, right? There's the world. There's the earth inside here, and the Aretz is part of the earth, right? The land is part of the earth, right? What happened in this case? In this creative expression, what happens? Who creates what?
Hashem is creating.
Who's creating? Shall I look at it more carefully? Look at it again.
The seed is,
Who?
the seed is creating its own seed.
Look at it. Who is HaKadosh Baruch speaking to? Who is HaKadosh Baruch speaking to?
Earth.
Beautiful. HaKadosh Baruch is speaking to the earth, and who moves? Who does the action? Who's moving here? Who's working here?
Earth.
Good. The earth is working. So we have this beautiful bombshell. And that is that this, the earth, and all of us sit in here. This is HaKadosh Baruch Hu, right? This is God. We sit in here. And from the earliest stages, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives us the opportunity to create. And by the way, we're going to make it so overt that we're going to have, God doesn't create the plant kingdom. By the way, he doesn't create the animals either. Look at the language over there. God turns to the land and he says, you have within you, based on the ingredients I put in you from the something from nothing part in the very beginning, right? Which is thought. You have the ingredients in you to give forth to the next stage of you. So do it.
Recognize your purpose.
And do it. Do it. Right? Good? Right? Good? You good with that? Okay, beautiful. Now tell me what happens. Look at the next pasuk. Totzea Aretz compared Psukim 11 and 12, and we will wrap today. Look at the Psukim carefully, compare them carefully. What do you say? Ellen, anything on it? What do you say, guys? Compare the two psukim. Tell me what's,
It's just saying that it happened, no?
I'm sorry?
It's just saying that it happened.
Compare the two psukim carefully.
Read it here.
Read it carefully. Cheating is allowed.
Encouraged.
Yeah, it's encouraged. Come on, look at it carefully. Remember every word, every letter. Come on, what do you got? Come on, look at it again.
Yeah, it's like a little mixed up, but.
Look at it more carefully.
Look at the command.
Are you saying that the plant life can be cultivated without man? Is that what you're talking about? I'm not
Yeah.
sure if that's where you
Yeah.
are.
Yeah, excellent, but we're one step before that. Beautiful. One step before that. I want you to compare, if you have the opportunity, compare the 11th verse and the 12th verse. And look at what God commanded the land to do and what the land did.
To be fruitful.
Beautiful. And be more specific, Ellen. Keep going.
Mm.
Huh? We got the lumineo. They followed on that. Huh? What are you saying?
Way over my head.
No, it's not over your head. It's not. It is not.
Then explain it.
We're training. This is what we're doing here. It is definitely not over your head. That's for sure. Okay, I want you to look at the psukim carefully and begin to identify these things. So what does HaKadosh Baruch Hu do? He talks to the land and he tells the land, Tadsheh, give forth to plants, right? Desha is vegetation. Desha esev, right? Vegetation of grass. Mazlia zara, right? That has within it the seed to give, what do you call it? To keep itself going, right? Etz piri, oseh piri, what does that mean? A fruit tree that gives forth fruit. Yeah? Sarah? Good. Let me know. Individualize. A species. A mean is a species, right? Good. Asher zar'o bo, which also, not only do the bushes and the grass, not only will they have the seed to replenish within them, we want the seed to replenish within the tree as well, right? Well, okay, so it's on land, step out, take the ingredients I put inside of you, put them together. By the way, I'm giving you the general parameters. Yeah, I'm giving you the general parameters. You, land, me, I'm only a couple of days old, right? You take the elements I gave you to create and do your thing. But he gives them clear parameters. What does the land do? It brings out the grasses as God wanted, with the seeds in them to propagate based on their own species. And it's oseh piri, which also had seeds but was lacking X. Come on.
Needed water.
What?
Did it need water?
Oh, beautiful. Hold that till chapter 2. Very good. Hold that till chapter 2. Come on, what's the difference between the two?
The first one was etz pri oseh pri, and the second is just etz oseh pri.
Beautiful. Excellent, Sarah. And therefore what? Therefore what? Come on. Come on. Is the go ahead, Vivian. Problem.
There was an opportunity for the earth to follow the exact directions of God,
Beautiful.
which would have been that the tree itself would have been.
Say it one more time, please. Say it a little bit louder.
Wait, she's not on. Keep turning it. It's on me.
Sit somewhere else next time.
God's expression of the potential for the tree was that it should create itself as a fruit. The tree itself would have encompassed,
edible?
and the tree could have been edible. The tree
Should have been
it's
edible.
pretty, or should have been edible.
Right.
But my own interpretation is that we don't always reach the full potential of what God has.
I want you to go differently. I totally respect what you say, I want you to look at this in another possible way, which is that the earth thought about it and said, if the tree is edible, we're finished. So you know what, God, thank you. I'm doing it, but I'm doing it my way. By the way,
And
Vayichen, right? I.e., it came out the way it should have come out. And Vayar Hashem Kitov, right?
that's the best part of
That's the
whole
best part. That's the whole thing. So remember, in here, right? In here. We're in here. The land is in here, everything in here. With an unbelievable opportunity to create, right? Inside here. Unconstricted, unlimited. And not only that, if you do it and you do it your way, Hashem's going to applaud it. That is a bombshell. When you read this pasuk, you have to stand up and cheer because you say, wow, it's not a joke. HaKadosh Baruch Hu was serious when he said this, that even though we all exist within him, we have an absolute ability to choose. Even in the most fundamental way, we have the ability.
Not just to choose, to create.
To create. Sorry.
Within his
That's right.
creation, we could create.
That's right.
He said create X and we created Y, and he's sanctioning Y, even though he said create X.
That's right. Because we went
But
ahead.
There's a space where he's allowing us to.
And not only, and then he's standing up and cheering.
Right.
And then he's standing up and cheering. You know what? That's what this is about. Right? That's exactly what this is about. That's why we're here. By the way, that's why we're here. Yeah. And again, when you see this type of thing, you're going to see this in how we live. We have. I'll give you a quick, interesting one. 1 minute. A quick, interesting one on Purim. So we say that the Megillah could be read from the 11th day through the 15th day. Right? Why? Because back in the day, the old days, there were people who lived in cities, walled cities, and villages. The people in the villages were generally speaking poor with less resources and may or may not have had the opportunity to read the Megillah. So we say that we're going to add a couple of additional days to when they could read. So they could come into the cities earlier than the holiday and read with the more established places in the city, right? How did the rabbis do this? From where? How did they have the right to do it? How did they have the right to do it? Didn't the Anshe Knesset establish the holiday being the 14th and the 15th? But 1 second. But this is the Din. It's in the Mishnah. 1 second. So where is our latitude? Where does it come from? The fact that we have incredible latitude, love it, we got it. But the exciting part of it is, how do I build that understanding where my latitude begins and ends? Over here, so to speak, the land knew. It knew that it was about self-preservation, and it listened to word by word of what God said and created trees that were edible that would be wiped out because the animals would eat the tree, not the fruit. Game over, right? So these choices, the ability to make choices, to reason, to develop, is a huge part of how we live and why we live. And it goes back to what we've been saying and self-preservation. Yeah.
What is all about self-preservation.
Yeah, that's right. Right. Yes, absolutely about self-preservation. Right. Beautiful. Okay, good. Thank you all. Thank you.
Right.
Good things. Of course.
Based on this.
Thank